The forward-looking statements, of course, we've got to put these. I'm a geologist. I'm the QP for our geological component of information. But I'm an explorer, so of course my hands wave. So that is what it is for that. So where we are, number one, I guess first off the rank, and it is really it is our refinery. We've been working at this for the last 3 years or so, and it's really been in earnest in the last year to realize that the plant that we acquired back in 2017 was functional, operational, and that this could be a significant contribution to cobalt production here in North America. Through that, the type of refinery that it is, it's perfect for the recycling of batteries. So this black mass of material that is becoming in earnest in production, specifically in the U.S. But that material that does contain cobalt and other metals is easily extracted and concentrated and reproduced into cobalt sulfate for the battery market. And so this is sort of what's the next steps of this refinery already. But what I'm going to talk about mostly is our mining side of it, where we started kind of as an exploration and mining development type of company with our project in Idaho. And just a little touch on the ESG component. That is a very important part of our company mantra as well. Just a little bit on the economics, I guess, behind us. We're listed on the TSX as Tina mentioned, but we are moving potentially to a U.S. listing. The running question I think that's come up of why Canadian companies, small Canadian companies have good access to investment funds, but as we're growing, we are finding now that we want to move to the bigger league, I guess, and get into the American listings that are there. Key things I want to draw on: we have a good amount of working capital. A lot of that is dedicated toward the refinery, but a lot of confidence in that. To move that into the exploration projects itself. Our share price, just over the last couple of months, as we've been releasing news on financing for the refinery, it's more than doubled since just before Christmas. So we're pretty excited about where things are headed. Our management team, including myself, of course, as VPX, but our CEO, CFO, and our engineer management team, we're all part of former big producing companies. Myself and Treviso and Peter Campbell are all ex Falconbridge mining people. So a strong background in base metals, which of course cobalt is one of. Our board of directors, the happy smiley face of Governor Otter, that is part of it. He's been an integral part of getting us inducted sort of into Idaho, but we draw on his former technical expertise as well. And he's as I said before, he's a great mentor for us on how we're moving forward. But really, other people on the board also coming from big companies as well. So we have a good balance between the management team and board of directors of being able to move a project into development, and we're hoping that we're proving that with our refinery project itself. Just a little bit on ESG. It is our motto, I guess you want to call it, our vision. It is to be the world's most sustainable cobalt, and you can't do that without having a strong environmental social governance strategy to begin with. We're a small company, and we realize that this isn't the type of thing small companies are doing, but more and more we are finding from the questions we get, the investors, especially the bigger investors, it is very important. And being a young company, we're only around for 4 years from our startup. it's easy to get into best practices. Again, the big mining background we have, we understand those best practices. We know when to engage them and when to carry them forward. And of course, when it comes to cobalt, and I'll talk a little bit about this in a few slides, but with cobalt, it is a lot about responsible sourcing. There is a lot of bad press and a lot of bad practices around cobalt, and we want to make sure that we're getting that right. And these are some of the institutes and responsible mining initiatives that we are a part of. You know, that as this is building up to being a more serious component of our industry, these institutes are great, provide great templates of what to follow from that. I could go on and on about this aspect alone, but we're stretched for time, and maybe there's some questions a little bit later on for that later. But just a little bit of background on the cobalt metal market, the supply and demand, and the electric vehicle market. Again, just very briefly. Cobalt's a critical mineral. That's been mentioned earlier before, and it's an essential component of the lithium metal ion batteries that are being used in electric vehicles and many other battery powered appliances and the likes. EV sales are growing in leaps and bounds, year by year, and so that demand is really pushing things forward. This is a more recent chart that's down here of showing the demand for cobalt, and this is cobalt specifically for to go into electric vehicle batteries, which is about half of the consumption of the total cobalt demand per year in here. And so it's steadily growing as EV sales are moving forward around the world itself. And so it should be noted that with this growth curve and thinking about the supply as it is now, getting around the 2024 and 2025 points in time, is that if we don't increase the amount of cobalt production out of mining, we are going to hit a shortfall in and around here. And again, this is why we're pretty excited about our Idaho project as being a potentially a new source that would come in online. But stepping back, I guess back in 2017 is when all of this critical minerals, especially in the U.S., has been recognized, and a very strong statement by Trump in 2017 about a strategy to ensure that reliable supplies of the critical minerals that are coming into U.S. We mentioned about the 35 minerals, and again, one of those being cobalt, and that has a lot to do with where it's sourced. Now, just a bit of a definition on what exactly is critical. There is a fairly robust definition of that, and that does have to relate on the economic importance. The supply risk is one that really I think affects cobalt the most. It's not a rare metal by any stretch of the imagination, but where it's coming from, where it's being processed, are two strong factors that put it into the criticality regime. And so let's take a look at that right now. So if we look at a global map, this is pretty busy, but these are the type of mines that produce cobalt. And it should be noted here that most resources, most mines that are producing cobalt are really copper and nickel mines themselves. And there's very, very few cobalt only nickel mines around the world. In fact, the only one is up in northern Morocco itself. But really, the bulk of the cobalt that is generated comes out of copper mines in Zambia and in the DRC. And in fact, 70% of world mine production does come from that area itself. A lot of the producers that are there are owned by Chinese company, and a lot of that of those resources are moved over to Chinese refineries. China produces about 80% of all cobalt sulfate that is used for battery consumption. They're also the largest manufacturers, the largest users of EVs. So they've sort of established themselves a very nice closed pathway, which is why we've got such a heavy arrow in that. Other refineries that are up here in Europe, most of that, again, the source of those come from nickel mines, many of which are in Canada, but a lot of that cobalt goes into production of steel and alloys. So the impact isn't so great here in Europe for impacting the battery cobalt market itself. And so when it comes to battery manufacturers over here in North America, 100% of that material is imported for manufacture. So again, what we're hoping and what we are planning to do is to close that loop again and be a very significant player in that North American market itself. So getting closer look at that is we've and I'll talk. I have a couple of slides on our refinery, but if we look at where we are, our refinery is sort of our flagship, well positioned in a historic mining camp. Originally, we were working there as explorers to develop our own cobalt resources. With that came a refinery that had been on care and maintenance since 2015, so not very old, but that is set up and capable of refining cobalt. Our project itself will reconfigure this operation to make it capable of producing battery grade cobalt material. But by and large, it's been a very much a plug and play kind of an operation. And overall, it is located sort of in the automobile alley of Ohio, Michigan, and even in Ontario, in Canada, of where the automakers and where the battery producers are located. But over here in the West, in Idaho, is our flagship exploration and mine development project, the Iron Creek project in here. And there is sort of a growing synergy, especially with Tesla headquarters in California, Gigafactory in Nevada, and now the announcement of a new gigafactory being built in Texas. Again, there's a Western push to the entire EV producing market that is over in here. So Idaho is really well located when it comes to that position. So let's have a look at our refinery before we jump into our Idaho project. This is a photo of the inside of the refinery. Fairly new, and as I said, just recently closed in 2015. We've done all the engineering work to have a look at what shape all of the equipment and the tanks and the valves and everything else are in. Things are in good working order. So we've been making really good progress, sort of in the background, before we get into sort of refitting the entire operation. Should be starting this summer. But it is a hydrometallurgical facility, so no big stacks, no exhaustion of fumes into the environment from that. It is more of a modern facility. It was built in 1996 and was operational intermittently through to 2015. And it was built on a former mine site where there had been silver and cobalt. And the mine and the mill are now long gone. A new refinery is built, and it was still, though, treating the historic mining ores of silver mainly, and as well as cobalt and nickel. The first assessment that had been done on the refinery, put this at a value worth about $100 million. So as we know, refineries are difficult to come by, not only just from their capital expense, it's also in the permitting. So the refinery itself is already permitted, and we've now just going through a permit amendments process for this refinery. So again, it's been pretty much ready to go, and it's the only of its kind in North America. And especially since with the refitting, we will be producing a cobalt sulfate, and that's what this a beautiful pink material is right here. The footprint of the building and the permit size, it actually does put a size capacity to this. So about 5,000 tons per annum. I'm not going to slide back, but it's about 100 kiloton per annum of cobalt is produced. So this is coming online. to already being a significant proportion of that cobalt sulfate market that we will have coming out of this plant. And we anticipate commissioning in October of next year. Just an overall view of this. These are the existing buildings that are in here, and really just for the refitting, a new building which will contain the crystallizer, which is actually the process that produces the cobalt sulfate in here, and a solvent extraction building. So taking the material will come into this building to break down into the components to concentrate and refine the cobalt that is in here. And over on the right-hand side of the diagram is where the tailings facility is going to be built. These are the old tailings that are in here. Oops, sorry. But they're quite small in size, and it does sort of speak to the small footprint of this facility in itself. A modern facility, as I said, being hydrometallurgical. So the impact to environment is quite minimized by this kind of a configuration. I thought it was worth, because of this, this type of a venue. Just a few months ago, back just before Christmas, as I said, our stock has doubled, and by the most part, it is because of the news flow that has been coming out on the funds we've been able to raise. It sort of was kicked off, by funding through the federal government and the provincial government behind the refinery, and through that other initiatives that have sort of fallen in place. I think one of the big ones, we partnered with Glencore, so the largest mining company, metal trading company that producing cobalt in the world, who was heavily behind the refinery in the first place as we got this started, had put forward over $5 million to do the feasibility studies and the pilot plant studies on the plant. It's just very recently we've announced that Glencore has agreed to accept that loan payment in shares. So now they are about a 4.5% ownership of First Cobalt. And then just last week, we announced our exclusivity agreement for the debt financing for the remainder amount that is needed for the capital of the refinery. So we're going to get to a little bit more of my own passion out of this is the Iron Creek project in Idaho. Just again, stepping at the larger scale or the regional scale to this, Butch had mentioned, and Ben did as well, about our Idaho cobalt belt. This is sort of the footprint of this in blue. This thing stretches, at least as a geologic entity, about 100 kilometers, about 60 miles in length, with a number of prospects and former mine producers in these yellow diamonds in here. The most, I guess, the most well known, and I guess the one with the longest track record of production is the Blackbird Mine. It was discovered, in the early 1900s, and it opened and closed several times up until 1968. But in the 1950s, and certainly in the major uptick in cobalt demand, this mine was supplied about half of the cobalt for the U.S. at that time. So it was sort of the big thing, and in the cobalt world through that time. There's a number of projects that started in there throughout the belt. And our Iron Creek project is at the southeast corner of the belt itself, and we are now getting to be quite advanced. Iron Creek, not quite as long a history as Blackbird, but it does show up at surface. So, and it was staked for iron originally, and it wasn't until quite a bit later that people realized the copper and cobalt potential of the deposit. And underground mining, to do some test mining for metallurgical studies and to understand the mineralization, went in at about 1970 and 1971. And so there are some underground workings, about 600 meters worth, into the deposit. itself. And then it went into a period where Noranda, former mining company, had owned this as well as the Blackbird Mine, and really didn't do any new work as far as understanding the resource there in terms of exploring. But they did do a series of resource estimation at that time, and then really since then there hasn't been a lot of work from that period. The mine itself is located on mining patents, and those are still in a valid state. We now own those patents 100%. Access is really good. This is the main road into the site here. This is what the added entrances look like back all the way back in 2016. This is already seeming like we've been there a long time since the work we put in it. But we've restored the site and cleaned a lot of this up, and now we've used the underground for some of our resource drilling that we did in earnest in 2017 and 2018. And so in 2018 we published our first resource, continued to drill through 2018 and compile data, and we put out early in 2020 another resource estimate. With some of the numbers that are in here. The first estimate focused on just inferred resources. The new estimate was a slight expansion from that, but I think more importantly toward mine development is a conversion of about 50% of that into the indicated category itself. These are all the drill holes. This is sort of a cartoon-like long section through the mineralization, looking at it. But we've got about over 100 holes now into the mineralization. Quite tight space, so of course that made the indicated resource calculation quite straightforward when we went to that. But the mineralization is strata bound, and we'll show some images in a few slides about what I mean by that. But it does speak to predictability, and I think importantly at this time that I want to note is that it's open in all directions. So all of our holes that we've drilled have gone into the resource. So we're open in the west and we're open to the east as well as to depth. And we really haven't done much drilling down dip at this point in time. But let's go through a few of the details of the deposit itself. So we have cobalt in pyrite, so it's an iron sulfide mineral. And the cobalt is with the iron in the lattice of the crystal structure of that. The copper, again, very simply is chalcopyrite, and both of these minerals are pretty straightforward without having many other deleterious elements such as arsenic associated with the mineralization. Mineralized zones are range in size, but in general, we have over 30 meters of true thickness of where mineralization lie. For the geologists that may be out there, our host rocks are metasedimentary rocks. They're old. They're about 1.4 billion years old. They're hard, which is great for developing a mine into. But we do find a good coexistence between the mineralization and the sedimentary layers that we do see in the rocks. So again, it does speak to continuity and speaks to predictability of mineralization. Getting to that, this is a 3D image of looking down at the ore body. Again, here's all our drill holes in black, and looking specifically at cobalt and copper. We do have a significant amount of copper in this in the mineralization as well, and we do have a distribution. So in the east, we have our higher grades of cobalt, and over in the west, we have our higher grades of copper that we have here. And again, open off to the east and open to the west and down dip. And that is sort of what the next approach to mineralization and drilling exploration will be. We've done just at least to get the ball rolling is how well does the mineralization sort of fit with a mine plan. The resource is optimal for underground mining. Parts of it are into a valley between the hillsides. So the old adits that were driven into the mountainside may not be used in the future mining, but we do envisage sort of a portal and adit and ramp type of a configuration to mining to this. The mineralization is elongated and a decent width that it would be very easy to follow along in a pretty straightforward fashion for mining that what we have in here. Adding to the mine planning, we've started our baseline studies back in 2017 to have a good database of water data for the property itself. To keep tabs of are we making any impacts with any of the work we're doing, but more exactly, again, to provide the information we're going to need for that baseline work. This year, and I guess what are our plans? We'd kind of been a little bit quiet on this last year in 2020 as we were really ramping up our efforts around our cobalt refinery in Canada. But what we did do was an IP geophysical survey, not over the deposit itself, but covered it on the western and eastern sides to get its signature. And what we're showing here are 2D inversion lines of the chargeability, which is what these red areas in here. So we pick up the mineralization quite easily, as I said, massive to semi-massive pyrite, as we would expect IP to behave quite well with. And so we have picked it up, and we found its signature over 600 meters off to the west and another 300 meters to the east. And so that becomes, of course, where the focus of our new exploration drilling will be this year, is to do some of these steps in these areas off in the east and the west. The survey results are quite exciting because we were starting to pick up other features and other responses that don't relate to Iron Creek itself. And these are probably other horizons that may be in the stratigraphic footwall in here. And so we can do some of these tests this year with drilling, and that is what we are planning to get to this summer for about 4,500 meters in there. We'll also continue our geophysical surveys. We're going to extend them further to the south to get a better resolution on the deeper signature with these longer lines, and see also if these footwall mineralization can be traced between the areas we hadn't covered last year. Beyond that and beyond Iron Creek, our property extends a reasonable size. So this is roughly about 6 miles or 10 kilometers across, and our property position is following what we believe to be the extension of mineralization. We do see surface mineralization exposed in a few areas, and that's what these black lines are in and around here. And this is just some of the cobalt bloom, so the cobalt weathering that's growing off of the cobalt-rich sulfide mineralization that's in here. And so we also have plans where we'll be drilling the Ruby prospect this year, where we got some pretty good intersections and grades of cobalt right at surface, and no one has drilled that before. With our property as well, we may have plans of doing more IP surveying out in the east to see if we can trace Ruby off further in that direction on strike. And we also have plans of doing geochemical surveying over this area and others in the belt, as there still is quite good potential in the surrounding areas for new discoveries. So just a very quick overview of our timeline, and I really want to more impress on what is on the shape of it. So we started it off in 2016, acquiring the Iron Creek, already having a resource, and so the drilling it was quite automatic. Again, being on patented ground, we could go straight into a drilling program with just minimal permitting processes. Now, as we are expanding and broadening out into the area and expanding that resource, we have begun permitting to drill off the patents, and we'll get to that this year. The metallurgical studies, I didn't touch much on that in this presentation, but metallurgical studies were included in the 2018 and 2020 43101 report with good results. And now we have further work that has been started this year to continue doing work on optimizing beneficiation on cobalt recovery that's there. And so, as I said, really the take home to look at this is how this is broadening out, and it is reflecting how this project is expanding quite rapidly. As I said, we've really only been at it for a couple of years. And we could be getting into the initial studies toward feasibility maybe as soon as next year. Just a little bit of, now here's some of the arm waving, but Iron Creek itself, and we put it up against the cobalt producers of the world, at least what the picture was in 2017, where we did have publicly available data. The producers out of the DRC Congo is really where what dominates everything, and everything else sort of kind of dwarfs behind that. But as I said before, without new resources coming online, very few of these deposits have the capacity to pick up a shortfall that's coming online. So Iron Creek, just with a bit of knowledge of what we're used to of these types of deposits and the type of mine that we may be putting in place, Iron Creek would very easily start fitting into the top producers in the world, and of course being maybe the first producer in the U.S. We're hearing good things about the new administration. As I said, Trump was a great supporter in I think advocating for mining and advocating for developing U.S. resources when it came to metals and that. But Biden has also I think now in the first few months is showing great signs of supporting a lot of those initiatives, especially revolving around EVs, because it does dovetail very well, with the environmental his green strategy that he has in place. So again, it's good news, we think, going forward. My last slide is really Idaho. It's, I think, the right place at the right time. It's we have a vision that we're going to build a modern mine. We have a lot of people to convince that this is, of course, the right thing to do. As Ben Davenport said it from the beginning, there is great local support in Idaho State, a good mining state with people who understand what's needed, and really what the impacts, not of course just to the economic impact, but also just of how this can be done well, and done right from the beginning. Mines that are sort of powered by electricity are coming online. And gone are the days of diesel engines and exhausts and the likes. And we plan to have Iron Creek as being another example of sort of a modern mining approach. We're a proud member of the IMA. We also have benefited and are getting behind the government geoscience initiatives around Idaho. And despite the lack of a Bureau of Mines, I think they're really doing well with the Geological Survey in Idaho is doing very well with progressing the geologic standing of Idaho and revealing the exploration potential that still lies in the belt. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. We're a little bit over time, but I'd like to get to a couple of audience questions while we have you. Are there any cobalt-copper properties that could potentially be acquired near Iron Creek?
Yeah, there definitely are. Certainly not as an advanced level. There was a flurry of activity in 2017, 2018 when we were active. And some good groundwork, but really, a lot, needing to be drilled. There is another, active project up in the north by another company, and they also have plans of moving forward. But certainly, are sort of, focused on their own operations. So we see ourselves as taking advantage of maybe. Of still having a grassroots approach as well as to new opportunities.
So on that comment, there was a question in the audience about how you compare yourself to Jervois.
We're on the same path. We don't look at things too much as this is an outright competition. In many ways, Jervois now has decided to take their refineries down of the metal down to Brazil. And as I said, our strategy is to keep things North American. We have the capacity, we have the knowledge, we have and I think all the infrastructure and people in place in Canada and in the U.S. To do this. So our approach is a closed loop.
And just getting to the cap structure quickly, any plans to consolidate in the future? Is that something that the company's thinking about?
As far as the shares, yes. I mean, we started consolidating, a couple of small Australian explorers, with a lot of shares on the market. We're doing our best through various raises. We just cleared off a bunch of warrants of just pulling all that together, and so that is sort of on the books, and it's been discussed a lot. I leave that to our CFO to answer that question a little bit better than the rock jock but it is a strong possibility in the near future.
And when you were talking about the tickers, you kind of alluded to a potential uplisting. Is that something that you're considering as well?
Yeah, very strong. I mean, we continue to look, of course, at the as we call the big board of the TSX, but it's also a listing in the U.S. I think would be a real advantage for us.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's really exciting. And thoughts on how much you'll be drilling in the near future in Idaho?
Yeah, we've slated about 4,500 meters this year, so we'll be drilling for a couple of months. We really see that as, of course, it's not maybe not going to make a huge impact on the overall resource, but it is going to get us into, I think, a little more methodically, I guess, on how we are going to continue before we get, and our strategy is really, again, is to grow along strike, and probably impact that inferred resource. But I think the heavy lifting is really coming next year. And again, with the refinery, cash flow, and a solid treasury, I think we're well poised for a strategy over the next couple of years to be really hitting this hard.
Definitely. And obviously the news announcements over the last few weeks have been really positive. It's a company that I wasn't as familiar with as of a few weeks ago until we had the introduction. So I know that the company's made a lot of progress, really strong management team, and you have some great partnerships as well. So congratulations.